What's up guys, it's Cobalt here and welcome back to another video. Today we are finally going to be talking about the G7 Littlest Pet Shop plushies. I've kind of been collecting these on and off behind the scenes for like the past year, but I still have yet to make a video about them. So today I am finally going to be doing that. I've bought a couple of these myself, although most of them came directly from Littlest Pet Shop, who was kind enough to send them to me and also kind enough to help sponsor today's video. So I'll also be including some links down below in the description where you can purchase these for yourself. But in my personal experience, I've seen these pop up the most at stores like GameStop, Meijer, and occasionally Toys R Us. So I'm going to be showing you all of the ones that I currently have in my possession, doing sort of a little review on what I think about them, and then also comparing them to one of the OG Littlest Pet Shop plushies that I acquired recently. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. Alright, so let's start by talking about the smaller size of plushies. There are actually two sizes. There's one that's slightly larger, but most of the plushie line is in this size. So obviously I gotta start off with the panda. As you can see by the tag here, these came out alongside Series 3 of Littlest Pet Shop, so definitely kind of behind on reviewing these guys. But let's actually take a closer look at the tag before we get more into detail with the actual plush. So here it is. Again, we have the Wave 3 panda mascot. You can see that these also still came with a Roblox code, which isn't really relevant anymore. You can see that code right here on the inside of the tag, and then on the other side, you can see all of the plush. So this is the first series of plush. There is actually a second series, which I'll be showing you in a moment, but for this wave, you could have collected the panda, this pink cat, the turtle, the dog, the cow, and the ladybug. So I actually have these three that I'll be showing off in today's video. And in case for whatever reason anybody is curious, here is the back of the tag, and here's the tag on the plush itself. So you can see this one was produced in 2024. And all of these plushies also sort of have their own normal Littlest Pet Shop counterpart. So obviously this one was inspired by this G7 LPS from Wave 1 right here. The only thing different about this pet is that the plushie does not have the little hearts here above the eyes, although I do love the extra hearts in the eyes. There's a lot that I have to say about these plush, but the details in the eyes are definitely my favorite parts about them. So then looking more closely at her, the fur is super soft. I feel like it is a really nice material. There's a lot of embroidered details, which I love. It's definitely better than anything that's printed on. The only things that I will not be talking about in today's video are the little ball plush, just because I don't think their quality is as interesting, and honestly I don't know too many people who collect them, but I think these plushies are definitely worth the price. So her little nose here is done with some threaded detailing, and then pretty much everything else is embroidered. The purple color around her eyes, excluding the embroidery, is an even softer fur material, and then inside the ears and on the paws it has been colored with this really cool kind of glittery fabric, which is also pretty smooth. It definitely feels nice to touch. It's still very cuddly, and this is a detail that's very reminiscent of the old style LPS plush as well. And then on the back of all of the plushies, of course, we still have the LPS logo now embroidered on them. And like I alluded to earlier, there is some really cool detail in the eyes. I love the fact that they still have the shaped eye shines. So of course this one has the larger heart to match her LPS counterpart, and then I love the smaller pink heart there as well, and then this really cool burst of color that's also in the pupil. It reminds me a lot of LPS customs, and I also really love all of her eyelashes. So this panda here is definitely one of my personal favorites, but now let's move on to the next one, which is this dog. Now I personally see this one as a basset hound, and there aren't actually any G7 Littlest Pet Shop that this one reminds me of, but I do kind of feel like this G2 LPS right here is definitely its counterpart. The only difference really is the eye color. So again, you can see that really nice detailing in the eyes. This one has the teardrop eye shines, and then I love all of the green colors in there as well. Instead of a threaded nose, this one has a really soft plush nose, and that plush detailing is seen here on the paw pads as well. I think one of my favorite details about this pet is his little sparkly bandana. I think that is super cute that he has a little accessory, and you can see the detailing of the little tie here in the back. Obviously this is completely stitched on and does not come off, but I really love it. His little tail and ears are also made of a different plush material that definitely feels on the cheaper side compared to all of the other fabric materials that are used here, but it is still quite soft, and I like the fact that they used it to give him a little bit more fluffiness to those parts. And then that same extra soft material is used on the inside of his ears as well. Next up, we have the fluffy cow, and although their details are quite different, it definitely reminds me the most of this Littlest Pet Shop right here, which was from the Wave 4 blind boxes. Now, I definitely feel like this cow here has the most going on. I think one of my favorite details about this plush that I'm honestly just now noticing is the fact that she has these upper eyelashes that are done in blue. I think that's really cool and adds even more visual interest to the eyes. And then the spot around her eye is done with that sparkly fabric once again, which I think is really fun. And then you can see the snout here is done with that softer plush material, and then the nostrils are embroidered. They've also made use of the shiny material on her hooves, which I think is absolutely one of my favorite details of this plush. And then the spots on the body actually appear to be dyed on, although it does not tamper with the quality of the fur. It is still very, very soft here, and I think the quality of those markings looks really great. And then of course there is the fuzzy little tail, and then the really cool kind of curly textured hair. This fabric is definitely similar to what's on the dog's ears, but I think it is even better quality, and again has that really cool kind of curly texture, which I think is a lot of fun. So in my opinion, this is definitely the most detailed and interesting looking of these plushies. But continuing on, we have this pig, which is part of the second wave of these plushies. But you can see here the tag has changed a little bit, so let's take a look at that as well. So the new tag is no longer really associated with a specific wave. Instead, we just have the wave 1 panda on here. And then if you open it up, we no longer have the Roblox code. Instead, there is a QR code to the website. And on this side, you can see the other plush to collect. So the only ones that I have are the pig and then this butterfly, which I'll be showing you shortly. But there's also a bunny, a penguin, a cat, question mark, although this really reminds me of a G2 German Shepherd, and then finally this mouse. I think the mouse is my least favorite, but I definitely want to get my hands on this one and potentially the bunny, although technically we will kind of be seeing this penguin in one of the jumbo pet styles. But anyways, just like our cow, this pig also has some sparkly hooves, although these ones are even cooler because they kind of have like a pearlescent or holographic sheen to them, which is really fun. And then of course that same fabric is used here in the ears, but aside from that, this is definitely one of the simplest plushies. The eyes also look really great, and I love how they kind of have a different shape compared to the other pets, although I completely almost forgot about how adorable this curly tail is. It's even a little bit stretchy, which is really fun, and that's a really neat detail as well. And if you're curious about the tag, this second wave was produced in 2025. I couldn't really find a G7 counterpart to this one, but I feel like this G2 pig looks pretty similar. And then finally, for the smaller size plushies, we have this butterfly. Also couldn't find a G7 comparison, but I feel like this G2 one is extremely close. So this is probably my least favorite out of the plushies that I have because she is very funky, but I still think is kind of fun and cool. Again, really love the eyes. I think that is the best part of these plush, and definitely the aspect of them that is the highest quality to me. And I love how each plush has very unique eyes. They all have different eyelashes. You can see here she's got a bunch, and then they all kind of have different shapes to them, and even the different eye shines, which is a really nice touch. She's got a little embroidered smile, and then I like this white detail. And then of course it is very fun to see all of her legs. She has 6 legs, which is super cute. And then she has some wings as well, which are made of that same fabric that the pig had on her hooves, although it is kind of just like a flat piece of the fabric with some printed on detailing here, which I feel like is a little bit cheaper looking just because they're so thin and kind of flop around and don't really stay open in my opinion. And then same goes for the antennas. It is that same fabric but printed on little strips of felt so that they can stand up. But I definitely would prefer these if they were actual plush pieces sticking out of the head instead of just, you know, these flat things. But it is still pretty cute, and in my opinion doesn't detract from the overall quality of the plush. But now let's talk about the big guys. So there are 3 big plushies, and they all come packaged in these boxes. So these ones are called the signature plush, while the smaller size are called the cuddle plush. And then if we flip the box over, you can see all 3 of the larger plush you can collect here. So obviously the penguin and the cow do come in their smaller sizes, whereas this panda is only in the larger size. So since we've already got him out here, here is our big ol' penguin friend out of the box. Again, super cool, and I feel like these are even more detailed than the smaller plush. We once again have that extra fluffy material that is used here for his chest and his little purple tuft of hair, but it does have some little glittery threads in there as well, which is kind of cool. Once again, here's a better look at the eye details. He's got some snowflakes in the eyes, and then the sparkly beak and the sparkly little toes. I would definitely say that these plushies are just as good quality as the smaller ones, but the fur that's used for the entire plush is even softer. Like, it's honestly kind of velvety, and I really love petting these guys. The last major detail to note about the larger plush that you do not see on the smaller ones is their little collars, which is really cool because a lot of the original G2 plushies also had collars. So it is plastic with the Littlest Pet Shop logo stuck on as a sticker. That's what the underside looks like. And then it's a little bit hard to see, especially on this guy because he's so fluffy, but there is also a sparkly blue ribbon that connects the collar all the way around, and then this sort of like fake beaded detail here, which is also pretty cool. I also couldn't find a G7 counterpart for this one, but it reminds me a lot of this G2 penguin right here. And next up we have our larger sized cow, so I can also do a direct comparison to the smaller version here. So you can see they're basically twice the size, and the detailing is pretty much the same, as well as the fabric that is used here, but I still feel like the main fabric is even softer, and the fabric that's used on the hair is extremely soft and much higher quality than the smaller plush. So with that and their size, they definitely earn the higher price point. And these larger ones in particular, you can also buy on Amazon. So once again, here's the back, and you can see the extra fluffy tail. But yeah, I just really love petting this fur on their head. I think this one has a little bit less spots than the smaller one, but the spots are still dyed on in pretty good quality. But I feel like you can see a little bit more of the lighter color underneath them just because the fur is silkier. I don't really know if that makes sense, but still love this one a lot and think she is super cute. And finally, we have our larger size panda, which of course is based off of the Wave 3 mascot panda. So this is a very close comparison for these two. She even has the little embroidered flowers on the head, which I think is a really nice detail that you wouldn't really expect, especially given the fact that the smaller panda did not have those little hearts that I was talking about. But yeah, this is pretty good quality. The inside of her ears is a fluffier fur that also once again has those little tinsel pieces in there, and this fabric is also found around this eye here. Again, the eyes are very nicely done. I love her little smile, and the fur is just generally super soft. And then you can even see the sparkly paw pads, which again I think are so cute. And on camera, especially when looking at this darker pink fabric, I feel like you can really tell just how soft these guys are. So yeah, I'm really loving our little plushie army here. In some circumstances, I feel like in a way they're kind of higher quality than the actual Littlest Pet Shop figures. I just really love how much detail is put into these guys, and while I'm not the biggest plushie person in the world, I definitely have a lot of fun collecting them. But now we gotta do our comparison to a G2 plush. So here's the one that I have that I got my hands on quite recently. Obviously you're gonna see that the fur quality is not the best, as this one's clearly been washed multiple times, so the fur is definitely not as soft, but there's still a lot that we can compare here. So we can just kind of see how the manufacturing of these plushies has changed and what we might see in the G7 plushies going forward that we are only seeing on these ones so far. So here is the tag with the old logo. You can see that it still says Hasbro, and this plush is from 2008, which is pretty crazy. But this plush is supposed to be a little deer. You can see that especially with the tail. So yeah, you can see this was from the LPS VIPs line on this plastic collar. I really love the hooves. They're made with a totally different fabric that has this really cool kind of like flower or paisley design on them, although this is definitely like early 2000s vibes for sure. There's also a different fabric used on the bottom of the hooves, and this much fluffier fabric used on the chest. You can see that the eyes are not actually embroidered, it's more of a patch that is sewn on, and they are still quite detailed and definitely feel more like a Littlest Pet Shop illustration. I feel like the new ones definitely have more detail in their eyes that makes them a little bit more unique from a standard Littlest Pet Shop. And then again, on the tips of the ears and the back of the tail, we have this different fluffy fabric as well, and you can see that paisley fabric is also used here on the little hair. And then one of my favorite details about these plush are the little stitch marks that are done on all of the designs to really make them feel like a plushie, which I think is really cool. So I feel like going between the deer and the cow is definitely the most suitable direct comparison because they're both hooved animals, and this is definitely the plushie from the G7 lines that in my opinion has the most detail and the most like interesting different fabric pieces, because that's one of the highlights of the original plushies is just how many different pieces of fabric are used and how they are all sewn together to make this really intricate design. So again, each individual pattern here is its own piece of fabric, and we do see that a lot on this plushie, but of course the spots on the body are just dyed onto the fabric, and I feel like at this point that's just kind of standard for most plushies nowadays. The quality for literally everything has gone down compared to the early 2000s, and yet it is still more expensive, and I assume more expensive to produce as well. Again, like I mentioned, the eyes are quite different style-wise, but I do think that these ones are a lot of fun, and again, definitely one of the aspects of these plushies that makes them feel higher quality because of how much embroidery is used. And I'm surprised that these plushies are even a little bit smaller than these LPS VIP ones. I was expecting them to be the exact same size, but it is still ever so slightly different. And then if we flip them around to the back, this one does not have the LPS logo embroidered on the head, and honestly, I think that was a really cool aspect of these new ones, just to even more connect them directly to the actual Littlest Pet Shop toys. The last thing that I want to point out, which you can kind of see as his head is going all the way backwards, these ones are kind of meant to bobble because they have thinner necks, so obviously you don't really see that here. You can kind of, but this guy, has a totally bobbly head, but again, not much structure neck-wise. So yeah, definitely let me know in the comments, which do you prefer? Do you still prefer the older nostalgic plushies, or do you actually really like the brand new ones? So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, seeing all these plush and seeing the review. Definitely let me know which of these plushies you are most likely to pick up, like which one is your favorite. Admittedly, I don't know all that much about plushies in general, so if any of you guys are primarily plushie collectors and have more insight on quality and things like that, I would definitely love to hear what you have to say down below in the comments. Thank you again to Littlest Pet Shop for sending me these plushies to review. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys all in my next one. Bye!